Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. I have a statement to read before we hear the first case today. This is a public hearing, and we are the Zoning Board of Adjustments for Putnam County, Florida. We operate under the authority of Articles 11 and 12 of the Land Development Code as amended. The primary responsibility of the board is to hear and decide appeals challenging final determinations made by the Planning and Development Services Department under the Land Development Code, and to hear and act upon requests for variances, special use permits, non-conforming use determinations, and preliminary development plans under the Land Development Code. Today, we only have a special use permit, so I'm going to skip the section on a variance. A special use permit is special permission to use property in a fashion in which the zoning classification of the property does not automatically permit. If we grant a special use permit, we may impose reasonable conditions on the use of the property, which must be satisfied if the special use permit is to remain valid. Unlike a change in the zoning classification, as a general rule, a special use permit applies only to the specific request in the application for a special use permit. The standards we use in deciding whether or not to grant a special use permit are listed in Section 45-1083 of the Land Development Code. Procedurally, we will call this case by name and number. A member of the staff will then briefly explain to us the nature of each request. We will then take any comments from the applicant or their representative, followed by any public comments concerning the request. Please direct all comments and statements to the board and not to other people in the audience. Before speaking, we will ask each person to be recognized, come forward to the lectern, and identify his or herself by name and address. After all persons wishing to speak have been heard, we will entertain a motion from the board. This motion will be voted on by board members and become our final order. Any decision made by this board can be appealed to the circuit court. However, any appeal must be filed within 30 days after the Board of Adjustment has rendered the final order which is being appealed. Are there any questions? Okay, before the first case is heard, all those wishing to speak need to be sworn in, so will the notary please administer the oath? Okay, the first case and the only case today is Special Use Permit 21-007.
This is an application for a religious facility in the agricultural district. The applicant is Trinity Baptist Church of Silver Lake Drive, Incorporated. Agents are Amber and Derek Wilkinson. Location is 5021 Silver Lake Drive, Palatka. Future land use is urban reserve, and the zoning district is agriculture. There are two parcels totaling 8.38 acres. The front 2.33 acres are to be used for the existing church structure with an addition of a new sanctuary. The site obtained a special exception SE 01-16 on April 25, 2001 for the addition of a fellowship hall and classrooms to the existing church site. The site contains a church built in 1969, a 1980 mobile home to be removed as part of this expansion, and two modular buildings used as classrooms. The property is not within a special flood hazard area. There are no known jurisdictional wetlands on the property. This is the aerial of the property, zoning, future land use. The special use permit criteria. The use is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets all concurrency requirements. The parcel has a primary use of church and is compatible with the existing future land use designation. The use is allowed as a special use in the zoning district in which the property is located and will conform to all applicable regulations. Section 45-72E5 of the LDC specifically states religious facilities greater than 10,000 square feet of gross floor area require a special use permit to locate within the agricultural district. Upon approval of the special use permit, the applicant will be required to undergo the development review process. The special use would not adversely impact or unduly restrict the enjoyment of the permitted uses in the surrounding area. The surrounding land parcels have been used as single-family residential for decades without adverse impacts from the existing church. The proposed expansion is not anticipated to have any adverse impacts based on use. The special use will not substantially diminish nor impair property values in the area, nor impede the orderly development and improvement of the surrounding properties for permitted uses. The property has contained this church for more than 50 years, during which much of the surrounding residential area was developed. The expansion is not foreseen to diminish or impair property values in the area. Adequate access roads, on-site parking, on-site loading, and drainage have been or will be provided where required. This site will go through the development review process to ensure compliance with the LDC, which outlines design and improvement standards applicable to all county development prior to the commencement of the development. The adequate measures have been taken to provide ingress and egress to the property that is designed in a manner to minimize traffic impacts on local roads. This property is located on a minor collector designated roadway as well as a county-maintained local road. The property does not appear to have a designated roadway access point. The applicant will be required to obtain a permit from Public Works for a designated roadway connection. Adequate screening and buffering of the special use will be provided if needed. The property abuts residentially zoned properties per section 45-513, table 703B of the LDC states that a type 22 buffer is required along property lines which abut the agriculture and residential zone properties. Compliance with 45-512 landscaping of vehicular use areas will be also required. Landscaping requirements specific to this site will be determined at time of development review. The special use will not have signs or exterior lighting that will cause glare, adversely impact the area, traffic safety, or a negative effect on the area. Signage and lighting will be reviewed for compliance at time of development review. There will be no undue risks to persons or property from hazardous substances. Hazardous substances have not been proposed nor located on the property. The proposed special use would not adversely affect the general public health, safety, and welfare of the residents of Putnam County. The church is located on, again, a minor collector classified roadway at an intersection with a local road and is consistent with the urban reserve future land use. The agriculture zoning. The use is existing and should not adversely affect the general public health, safety, and welfare of the residents of Putnam County. The applicant has requested a special use permit to allow a religious facility greater than 10,000 square feet of gross floor area in the agriculture zoning district. Upon approval of this special use permit, the applicant will be required to go through development and review process and meet all requirements set forth in the Land Development Code and any conditions that may be added by the board. Staff recommends approval subject to the conditions listed. Proposed parking shall be required to incorporate wheel stops or other sufficient demarcation. This shall be shown on the site development plan submitted during the development review process. Ingress, egress with the parking areas to and from the public road shall be required to be adequately demarcated and shall be shown on the site development plan submitted during the development review process. As required by the Land Development Code, amendments to approved site development plans shall be approved by the Development Review Committee prior to issuance of permits. And number 4, proposed lighting shall measure 0-foot candles along all property lines except as required by the Florida Building Code for safe access. The applicant is here if you have any questions.
Okay. Do we have any questions for staff? None? Okay. Before we proceed, let's do a site visit roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Okay, Amber and/or Derek Wilkerson. I think Derek was the one that was sworn in. Would you like to come forward to the podium? Please state your name and address for the record.
So my name is Derek Wilkinson. My address is 121 Pecan Grove Road in Palatka, Florida, and I'm representing Shannon Custom Homes, the future contractor of this build.
Okay. Do you want to add anything to the report?
Basically, we are expanding. We have outgrown our local small church and have a big youth impact, and we're outgrown, so we're trying to add to be able to house and have more people and have a bigger fellowship.
Okay. Any questions from Mr. Wilkins?
I have a question, and it may be state statute, I'm not sure, but the wheel stops, the addition for making them do the wheel stops, will that potentially, I'm just thinking of kids playing soccer in the field, or, I mean, is that possibly something that would, I don't know if we can strike that, but if we can, is that something that would add to the value of what you guys need for the property by not having those there, or does it matter?
Yeah, so if we could eliminate them and use more of a non-pervious area in the parking lot when it gets in the design stage, and use more grass area instead of concrete and stops, then it's going to allow less knees and bruises on ankles.
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Okay, hold up just a minute. Gabriel, were you going to address that issue also?
Yes, ma'am, if I may. The purpose of the wheel stops is to delineate the parking spaces. They're being allowed to have almost entirely unimproved parking, and so the only thing that allows us during our site inspection to tell whether there's the required parking and whether they're maintaining their required parking is the individual wheel stops.
Okay, and can you, I probably should have grasped what you said, but tell me that again? I'm
So
sorry.
the wheel stops delineate the parking spaces. There's not going to be, so this site was originally permitted with grass parking. And normally our parking standards are to require stabilization of the parking area. But Public Works determined that they could have grass, but the caveat to that was that they put in the wheel stops so that each parking space could be delineated. So they're not going to have the regular delineation where they have like striping and the dimensions. So in order to tell whether the dimensions are accurate, we have to have the wheel stops placed in every certain number of feet to pass the inspection and to ensure that the dimensions of the parking area are adequate. And this is a carryover from the last special use approval. So they've been approved for a special use permit prior to this.
Okay, and that was already in there?
Yes, sir.
So they're not going to have any paved parking. It's all going to be grass like it is now.
So I would assume that Public Works would probably make the same exception again, but I'm not sure. When it comes to the development review, then they'll make that determination. But given that the site is already improved, I highly doubt that they're going to make them pave that area.
So is this, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the correct way to say it. Is this somebody's opinion just within Public Works, or is this a state statute? Is this a, for lack of better words, governmental red tape that they're having to jump through, or is there a purpose?
There is a purpose. It's
Okay.
to determine the dimensions of the parking spaces,
Okay.
to ensure that the